Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayed Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavate Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Shrinvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanaha Hridayantasto Haya Bhadrani Vidunoti Shruhit Satam Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Jnanati Yashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayada Hetukam Yasyam Vai Shruyamananam Krishne Paramapurushe Bhaktir Utpadyate Pumsa Shokamoha Bhaya Apaha. Okay, so thank you all for joining today's session on Descendants of Ajamīḍha. So those who have joined previous sessions, you would actually know what we are talking about. But if you have joined today, you will find it a little bit awkward as to what we are speaking. We are speaking of the lineage, the hierarchy tree, the descendants of very special souls. Um, but even if you have attended last session, you might still not remember the lineage, the hierarchy, the descendants. So I will jog some of your memory now, and with hopefully a visual that you are able to see and able to understand. So you will have to tell me, give me some guidance. Are you able to see my thumbs up? Thank
Yes,
you.
Prabhuji.
Okay, so you'll have to forgive me for the raw nature of the visuals. This is how I studied, although it's not recommended to scratch in Bhagavatam. But nonetheless, on an empty page of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, I have tried to put down some of the descendants. So in this series of chapters of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, we are actually speaking about descendants of moon god. And the beginning happens with a war in the dynasty of moon. And eventually in that dynasty, a son named Buddha is born, and Buddha is sorry, my apologies. Buddha is born, and from Buddha, Pururava is born. So if you see Pururava, the story of Pururava and Urvashi, we went through a few sessions ago, how Pururava was enchanted with by Urvashi and how Urvashi actually had left Pururava. And then, he did some yagya to go to the planets of Gandharvas. That was one of the sessions. So Pururava then had six sons, and you will see in my all of the six sons are very important, but I have only mentioned Ayu and Vijaya. Ayu being the eldest son, and from Ayu came Nahusa. The Raji here, the second son, is actually an important son, and Rabha and Anena. But Raji and Rabha, especially, they have some importance in Srimad Bhagavatam. But the most importance is given to Nahusa, because in the dynasty of Nahusa, six sons were born. And the verse is very beautiful. It says, Yati Yayati Samyati Ayati Vyati Kritihi. So this is Yati Yayati Samyati Ayati Vyati Kritihi. So these are the six sons of Nahusa, of which I think you have already gone through the famous pastime of King Yayati and Devyani, and how King Yayati enjoyed with Devyani and Sarmishta for thousands of years, and how he became completely frustrated with sense gratification and chose the path of the Supreme Lord, and went back home, back to Godhead. And following in its footsteps, Devyani, the daughter of Shukracharya. The Shukracharya is a priest of the demons, and Devyani is the single daughter, only daughter of Shukracharya. So Devyani, it's very beautiful verse. And they, after Yayati had also left for forest and eventually went back home, back to Godhead, Devyani became completely detached from the material world and from the material body. She performed beautiful sadhana, and it's mentioned she went back home, back to Godhead in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, last verses of that chapter. So from Devyani, who had achieved complete perfection, there were two sons, Yadu and Turvasu, and from Sarvishta, who was actually Kshatriya by Devyani was Brahminical by nature because she was Brahmana's daughter, Shukracharya's daughter. And Sarmishta was Kshatriya by nature. So from Sarmishta came Dhruyu, Ayu, and Puru. So here we will focus a lot on Yadu dynasty. You can see when I hover things, right? Or yes, okay. So we will in further chapters discuss a lot about Yadu dynasty and the dynasty which came from Puru. So on the top is moon god, Puru Rava Nahusa Yayati. And actually Yayati is a central figure between the dynasty of Krishna, which is Yadu dynasty, and the dynasty of Arjuna, which is on the Puru side. And there is a cross connection between that Yadu and Puru side because these both dynasties they flourish independently. And of course, there are other sons, Turvasu, Dhruyu, and Anu, and there are very, very famous kings in these dynasties too. But we Bhagavatam doesn't deal in extreme depth of these dynasties. So Yadu dynasty, I'm not going to do in this session. Next session, I think is also I have that opportunity to serve you. So in that session, we will go in details of this Yadu dynasty. Today, we will go further into Puru dynasty, and in Puru dynasty, you heard the story of Dushmanta and Shakuntala. Dushmanta gave up his own son. Shakuntala actually is a daughter of demigods. And you know how demigods, I think she's a daughter of Urvashi, if I'm not wrong. So, daughter of demigods, they're not generally super chaste. But Shakuntala, she was raised by one Rishi Muni. I forgot the name of the Rishi Muni, but it could be Chaivan Muni or something. So he trained Shakuntala personally, and so Shakuntala was exquisitely beautiful, yet she was exquisitely chaste. It's a very rare combination. And because she was so chaste, when when Dushmanta Maharaj was actually traveling the forests, he was tired. He met Shakuntala, and he realized that she was daughter of a Rishi Muni. So she asked her hand in marriage to that Rishi Muni. They got married, and so Dushmanta had a son with Shakuntala, and the son's name was Bharat. And after that, Dushmanta, the king, actually had left. He didn't realize. So, and many years passed by, and he never came back for Shakuntala, his wife. And because kings in those days used to have many wives and many responsibilities, so king completely forgot in his grave responsibilities. And after many years, when Shakuntala came back to Dushmanta, then he rejected. He didn't accept the son, which was Bharat Maharaj. He didn't accept his son. So because Shakuntala was extremely chaste, uh, there was Akashvani, or a voice from the clouds, from the sky, that is yours. So this is the power of chastity. When someone is extremely chaste, the entire you will have heard the story of Tulsi Maharani. You will have heard the story of Mother Sita, and Shakuntala is also in that category. So when the names of chaste women are taken, the names of Shakuntala is taken because the sky spoke for her. And then Bharat Maharaj had to accept the fact. The sky, in fact, also told Bharat Maharaj that Mata Bhastra Pitu Putro, that mother is the covering, but father is the Bharta, which means the father is actually the caretaker of the son in the family. And so when Sky spoke like this, Bharat Maharaj, he couldn't argue with anyone. There was no second thought. He accepted, Dushmanta accepted Bharat Maharaj as his son. Bharat Maharaj was very, very powerful, physically, and his chivalry. He expanded the kingdom gravely, and some say that this is also the Bharat Maharaj on whose name the Bharat Varsha is kept, because he extended the boundaries of India dramatically because of his prowess. And so then further in that line, Bharat Maharaj had no sons, and so when he conducted yajna called Marutstoma, and in that yajna, the Marutas, the demigod by the name Marutas, who actually serve Indra, they came and they gave Bharadwaj a son to Bharat Maharaj. This Bharadwaj actually was a son of Brihaspati, the spiritual master of the demigods, and Mamta, who was um, Brihaspati's brother's wife. And so there was this illicit relationship between the two, and out of the relationship, a son was born, Bharadwaj, and mother didn't accept the son, and the father also didn't accept the son. So the son was left there. Nonetheless, Marutas, the demigods, they came and they adopted the son and they gave him the name Bharadwaj. Bharadwaj, why? Because actually Bhara means for Brihaspati and Dwaja means one who is rejected. So that's why he was given the name Brihaspati reject. Father is supposed to take responsibility of the son. So the name of the son became Bharadwaja. Brihaspati, who didn't accept the responsibility of his son. So now for rest of his life, when Brihaspati hears this name, he will know that this was his responsibility that he didn't take. So this Bharadwaj son was also very pious. Like we saw, Buddha was very pious. Similarly, Bharadwaj was very pious, and so he was given to Bharat Maharaj. Then he married Manyu, and then Britakshattra was born, and Nara was born, and there were five more sons. But I have highlighted Britakshattra and Nara because Nara, why? Because in the lineage of Nara, you recently must have heard the pastime, just in last few sessions, you must have heard the pastime of Rantidev. So Nara, Sankriti, and then Sankriti, we have Rantidev. And everyone knows the story of Rantidev, purest of the pure devotees, for whom Maya didn't exist. In a verse, it is mentioned that because of his pure devotion to the Lord, there was no existence of Maya for him. He was a completely pure devotee. Um, so therefore, we remember this dynasty of Manyu and Nara and Rantidev. And at the same time, Manyu had a son named Britakshattra, and Britakshattra had a very powerful son named Hasti, who actually built this city called Hastinapur, which is the present day Delhi. So Hastinapur. And now Hasti had few sons, Ajamīḍha, Dvijamīḍha, and Purumīḍha. So then Ajamīḍha is the dynasty that we are now going to get into. And this is a very, very interesting dynasty. Very interesting dynasty because it has connections to the modern day world. So Ajamīḍha, um, let me just see if I have. Uh, oh, this is on screen share, isn't it? Yeah, this one here. Okay. So here we have now the dynasty of Ajamīḍha from top. Ajamīḍha had sons named Nila, Brihadishu, and Riksha. So I have put lot of focus on Nila and Riksha. Nila, why? Because in this dynasty you have Panchala. And Panchala, there was a personality by the name Panchali. You all know Panchali, right? It's Draupadi, the wife of Arjun and Pandavas. Draupadi, she was called Panchali. Why was she called Panchali? Because this dynasty is called Panchala. Uh, from Nila came Brahmashva, and this I have mentioned Mudgala. This is Mudgalas, meaning there were five such sons. Together they were called Mudgalas. Because of them being five, the dynasty became Pancha or Panchala. And it's very interesting in their dynasty. If in one line, Divodasha was born, and from Divodasha, Drupad was born. Drupad is the one who had a battle with Dronacharya. They both were friends in childhood. Drupad is coming from kingly culture, Kshatriya family, and Dronacharya was from a Brahminical family background. And so they both learned together, they became friends. And Drupad always said to Dronacharya that, if you had need, you can always come to me. But when they grew up, then once Dronacharya actually came to Drupad asking for half of the kingdom because Drupad had promised him in the childhood, then Drupad, just mocked Dronacharya. So then there ensued a great battle between Dronacharya and Drupad. And Drupad was, he lost that battle. And so he was ashamed. He was insulted by Dronacharya. Just as Drupad had insulted Dronacharya, Dronacharya also insulted Drupad back. And Drupad being a Kshatriya, Brahmanas can sometimes, well, it can't be said like that, but Kshatriyas, they definitely remember their insults. The dishonor is very bad for them. It's worse than death. Krishna says this to Arjun in Bhagavad Gita. So he then did a yagya, and from the yagya, two children were born from fire, directly from fire. One of them were Drishtadyumna and then Draupadi. So Draupadi was born of fire. So she was extremely chaste, a very powerful, very pure personality because fire purifies. Um, so therefore, Draupadi was also called Panchali. And similarly, Brihashva from the Mudgals, there was one son, Divodasha. Another was daughter by the name Ahalya. Ahalya married Gautam Muni, and then there were few children in few lineage members in between Shatananda, Satya Drishta, and Saradvan. So Saradvan actually he saw Urvashi and he discharged his semen on a piece of a grass called Kusha grass, and immediately two children were born. One of them, one boy and one girl. They were kind of twin brother sisters. When Shantanu, a great powerful king that you will hear in this dynasty here, in the Riksha dynasty, he was visiting the forest. He saw two children lying on a kusha grass crying out. So he adopted both of them and he gave them name as Kripacharya and Kripi. He saw that they were both Brahminical in nature. So Kripacharya became one of the teachers in the Kuru dynasty. Further with the Pandavas, you will see that Kripacharya. And Kripi became the wife of Dronacharya, who was also one of the teachers of the Pandavas and Kauravas. So there, there is this dynasty there. Then if you come for if you come back to the Riksha dynasty, you will see there from Samvarna and Tapti was born Kuru, and Kuru is the root Kaurava of the Kauravas. And Kuru was a very pious king, and he had Parikshi who had no sons, Sudhanu, Jhanu, and Nishada. There is no mention of Nishadha, what happened to them, but there is mention of Sudhanu and Jhanu. So basically, from Kuru, the most important lineage is Jhanu. But this Sudhanu is not less important. Why? Because this from Kuru dynasty, from Sudhanu, you will see this Brihadratha and Jarasandha, Somapi. So this lineage further progressed unto Kali Yuga, last kings of the Magad. So very last kings, if you go back to Chandragupta Maurya dynasty, you will see that dynasty is almost the last dynasty from these Magad kings, who are actually, and this is very well documented, these last kings of Magad. So this is the connection of the modern day just few hundred years ago. So no one can say that Mahabharata battle didn't happen. It's a mythology. It's not a mythology. It's a history. It's an authentic history which can be completely traced back. So I'm going back to, so in this chapter, these kings of Magad are mentioned towards the very end. But we'll first go to Janu, and from Janu, the king named Pratipa was born. And Pratipa, he had three sons. All three sons are very, very important in this dynasty. Why they are important? The first son, the eldest son, is Devapi. This son of Devapi, he had no interest in kingdom, so he left for forest. Basically, he just left. And so the second son, Shantanu, he was made king. Now Shantanu has a very powerful history in his past life. he was able to touch old people and make them young. Amazing, isn't it? If someone touches you and suddenly you become young. So that is the mystic power Shantanu had. So he was able to make everyone very happy materially. So therefore, he was given in this birth, he was given the name as Shantanu, meaning pleasant one, someone who gives pleasure. So Shantanu, he had two wives. The famous story of Bhishma Dev is well known. Shantanu married Mother Ganga, and therefore Bhishma Dev and seven cursed sons, six more cursed sons were born. There is a famous story of Shantanu and Ganga where Mother Ganga tells him that I will take away all my children at birth, but you should not question me where I take them. So she takes all the children, she kills the children one by one, one by one. And when she is about to kill Bhishma Dev, then Shantanu, he can't tolerate the death of his son, so he stops Mother Ganga and he asks her that why are you killing my sons? And she already told him, you should never ask me this question. If you ask me this question, I shall leave you. So she does that and she leaves with her son Bhishma Dev, or Ganga Putra. She leaves with and she raises Bhishma Dev. And when Bhishma Dev grows up, becomes then he's handed over back to Shantanu. Now, these all sons that Mother Ganga was killing, these were all cursed sons. She was actually helping redeem them, get them back to their original position. But see, Bhishma Dev was cursed. So he was a cursed son, and because he was cursed to take birth here in the material world on the earthly planetary systems. So we have to understand from this pastime that if you are born on this earthly planetary systems, it's not the best place you have taken birth with. It's definitely not the best place in other ages, but in Kali Yuga, it is a very interesting place to be. So then, Shantanu the king, he also married another lady by the name Satyavati. Satyavati is actually the daughter in the lineage of this Magad kings from Sudhanu. There was a person called Upchari Vasu, and he married Matsya Garbha. Matsya Garbha means a lady from the oceans, the daughter of the oceans, basically. So he married daughter of the oceans, and from daughter of the oceans and Upchari Vasu, there was a daughter born by the name Satyavati. Of course, she won't be an ordinary person. So Satyavati, she married actually, first she married Parasar Muni. There was a union between Satyavati and Parasar Muni, and from them was born Vyasadev. The Vyasadev who has written everything. So here Satyavati plus Parashar Muni, Vyasadev was born, and from Vyasadev we have Sukhdev Goswami. But Satyavati's second marriage was with Shantanu, and Shantanu and Satyavati then they gave birth to Chitrangad. Now, before going into the dynasty of Chitrangad, I would just quickly take detour to Bahalika, the third son. Why? Because the dynasty of Shantanu is very interesting, but the dynasty of Bahalika is also very interesting. Bahalika his son was Somadatta. Somadatta is specifically known for his strength. Somadatta has three sons, and all three sons participated in the battle of Mahabharata. In the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, these are the names mentioned: Bhuri, Bhuri Sharva, and Shala. Super powerful. Shala became, I think, Shal had all of these were Maharathis, not Atirathis. Atirathis means someone who can, fight with 10,000 charioteers in one say at the same time. Maharathi means someone who can fight with hundreds of such Athirathis. So these were all Maharathis, extremely powerful, and the names of these personalities are mentioned in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. So that's most mention we have got, because in the battle of Mahabharata, most of them, they all died basically. So coming back to Shantanu and Bhishma Dev, Ganga, and then from Satyavati and Shantanu, we have Chitrangad. Chitrangad got into a battle. So Chitrangad had a son by the name Vichitra Virya, who actually was, I'll explain to you how he was born, but basically Chitrangada got into a battle with another Gandharva by the name Chitrangad. So they both were Chitrangad. Maybe the Gandharva name Chitrangad was envious that the earthly king is having the same name as his. So they, maybe that is not true, but basically there was some battle between both the Chitrangadas, and the Gandharva Chitrangad killed the son of Shantanu, and so all of a sudden there was no king. So Satyavati requested Ganga Bhishma Dev, because Bhishma Dev had vowed not to marry. So then how would lineage grow further? So Satyavati requested, so when Chitrangad was present, Chitrangad was actually had Chitrangad had a son by the name Vichitra Virya, and for marriage, Vichitra Virya was weak in his personality, meaning he was just born feeble. So to get Vichitra Virya married, Bhishma Dev had actually kidnapped the daughters of one of the kings. Um, I think the name is Virada or something. I forgot. But basically, he kidnapped all of his daughters. They were Amba, Ambika, Ambalika. So Amba um, Amba actually wanted to marry Bhishma Dev, and Bhishma Dev said, I have vowed for a brahmacharya life." So Bhishma Dev wouldn't marry Amba, and then Amba went on, this story of Amba killing Bhishma Dev in the battle of Kurukshetra. She had to take another birth to become Shikhandi, and as Shikhandi she originally then killed Bhishma Dev. um, so that is another story. But in essence, when Chitrangad was killed, then Satyavati had to request Bhishma Dev to borrow his son from Parashar Muni, who was Vyasadev. And because Vichitra Virya died of illness because he was born weak, so Vyasadev, he actually had sons from the womb of Ambika and Ambalika, and one maid servant too. Ambika was, she closed her eyes as soon as she saw the fearful form of Vyasdev, because Vyasdev is a ascetic, right? He lives in forest, and he was not looking very nice and smart and handsome. So as soon as any women would look at him, they would be afraid. So Ambika, she actually closed her eyes. Because she closed her eyes, so the son was born blind at birth, Dhritarashtra. And Ambalika, similarly, she was, her bodily color changed when she saw the fearful form of Vyasadev. So Pandu was born weak. He was not born to his full strength. He had, so essentially, therefore, what happens is, because he was born blind, uh, Pandu was made the king of the kingdom. And everyone knows, the battle of Kurukshetra happened because. But one thing is very interesting. When Vyasadev had actually was actually having giving birth to the children through Ambika and Ambalika, this was at the, just at as the Kali Yuga had just begun. It was at the very, very beginnings, early beginnings of Kali Yuga, basically. So in Kali Yuga, there is a verse which is written in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. It says, Ashvamedham Gwalambam Sanyasam Palapaitrakam Devarena Sutotpattim Kalau Pancha Vivarjayet. So in Kali Yuga, 5 things are forbidden in this age. What are the 5 things? Forbidden things. Ashvamed, horse, the yagya, the fire sacrifice in which you sacrifice a horse, is forbidden. Then Gwalambham, a sacrifice in which you sacrifice a cow, is forbidden in Kali Yuga. Sannyasam, taking sannyas, is forbidden in Kali Yuga. So you will not see mass sannyasis here. Back in the days, there were lot and lot of sannyasis, but in Kali Yuga it is forbidden. Palapaitrakam, offering flesh in fire sacrifice for forefathers. There are some sacrifices you do for the forefathers in which you used to offer flesh. That sacrifice is also forbidden in Kali Yuga. And then Devarena Sutotpattim. So in the historical times, if the elder son, if he can't have son through his wife, then then his younger brother would be allowed to give sons through the wife of the elder son. So this was a very, not a super common practice, but this was like you know an exception to the rules. So this was an exception to the rule back in the days, but in Kali Yuga even that is forbidden. So you can't have a younger brother having sons from the wife of the elder brother. That is forbidden in Kali Yuga. So um, so why is this chapter very important? This chapter is very important because this chapter is mentioning about so many great personalities and so many hidden stories. But in this chapter, there is one very beautiful quality of the Lord is mentioned, that is his mercy. Krishna, being extremely merciful, is mentioned in one of the verses. We'll see that as soon as we come to it. So we had these maid servants. From maid servant Vidura was born, because maid servant was intelligent. Vidura was extremely intelligent, and everyone knows these Kauravas from Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, and Duryodhan and Dushala plus 99 sons. So they were 100 brothers and one sister. It's very interesting. They were called by the name Du. In ancient Vedic times, why would you keep the name of your sons as Du? Du means bad. Usually you would keep the names with Su. Su means good. So the names could have been Sushala, Suryodhan, Su something. But interesting is they were all given names with Du, meaning they all, like most of them, they have this negative personalities. Of course, not all sons were equal. One of the sons actually gave up the association of his brothers and came on the side of the Pandavas because he was very righteous in his nature. Because Gandhari was also very righteous in her personality. She was extremely chaste. So the name of Gandhari also comes in the line along with Shakuntala, Mother Sita, like that. She was very chaste uh, personality. So then on the Ambalika side, we had Pandu, and from Pandu married two queens, Kunti and Madri. From Kunti, we know that through demigods, we had from Dharmaraj we have Yudhishthir Maharaj. From Indra we had Arjun, and from Vayu we had Bhima. And similarly, from Ashwini Kumaras, Madri got Ashwini Kumaras are extremely beautiful. So Madri got two very beautiful sons, Nakul and Sahadev. So when we describe Pandavas, we describe each of the sons of Kunti Maharani with their specific skills. Like Yudhishthir Maharaj is Dharmaraj, so he's extremely righteous, he's perfect. When we speak of Arjuna, he's the best archer, very sharp. When we speak of Bhima, we know for him for his raw power. Um, and Nakula Sahadev were specifically known for their beauty. Um, not to say that the remaining Bhima and Arjun and Yudhishthira were not beautiful, but Nakul and Sahadev were specifically beautiful. And then from Yudhishthira and Draupadi, we have Prativindya, and from Arjuna and Draupadi, we have Shrutakirti. Bhima and Draupadi, we have Shrutasena. Nakula and Draupadi, we have Shatanika. And from Sahadev and Draupadi, we have Shruti Karma or something like that. Now, this is all the sons of from Draupadi plus Pandavas. But Pandavas, they also had other wives as they were going through the forests. There were other women who were attracted to the Pandavas. And so Pandavas married, so Yudhishthir Maharaj married Pauravi, and the son named Devaka was born. Bhima had married Hidimba in the forest, a demoness who actually wanted to kill the Pandavas and eat them. But she was attracted to Bhima so much that she actually revealed hidden information to Pandavas that actually her brother is coming to kill all of them. And so, they should run away from this place. So, but somehow Bhima actually killed her brother. But nonetheless, Bhima pacified Hidimba by actually marrying her. So from Bhima and Hidimba was born Ghatotkach. And the story of Ghatotkach, has everyone seen them in the big screens? You know how wreaks havoc on the Duryodhan's army during the battle of Mahabharata. And similarly, Bhima had married Kali and got a son by the name Sarvagata. Sahadev, the youngest son, had married Vijaya and had a son named Suhotra. Vijaya was actually the daughters of the mountain. So somewhere around in the northern regions around Himalayas. Similarly, Nakul had married Karenumati, and they had a son named Narmita. Arjun had actually married Ulupi, who was daughter of the Nagas. This is up in Assam region. So in the region of Assam, you will find there are still very powerful Hindus who are followers of Krishna, because Arjuna actually married the daughter of the Nagas there, Ulupi. And by them, they have a very powerful son, Iravan. Iravan was very powerful. Arjuna also married the princess of Manipur, and the son they had was Babruvahan, who was also very, very powerful. Deepak Prabhu has a question. Um, may I request Deepak Prabhu, if you can hold off to your question for some time? Questions, corrections, whatever they may be. I will hopefully finish this shortly, and then we will open up for questions, if that's okay.
Sorry, it's a mistake. Thank you. No problem. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So so Princess of Manipur, Babru Vahan was born, but the king of Manipur, he adopted Babru Vahan as his own son. And then Arjuna and Subhadra Maharani, of course, this is the Krishna's sister. We had Abhimanyu, and from Abhimanyu, and Uttara was born Parikshit Maharaj. And when Parikshit Maharaj was introduced, because see, this Bhagavatam is spoken to Parikshit Maharaj, right? And so now the author of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is telling to Parikshit Maharaj, then you were born from Uttara. But as soon as he says this to Parikshit Maharaj, the author says a very, very beautiful verse. He says, Parikshineshu kurushu droner brahmastra tejasah tvam cha krishnanubhavena sajivo mochito antakat. Parikshineshu kurushu. So because of a very terrible war of Kurukshetra, the Kauravas had completely almost vanquished. But what Dronacharya's son, Ashwathama, what had he done? Drone Brahmastra Tejasa. So he threw Brahmastra on Parikshit Maharaj. And because of the Tejasa, the power of the Brahmastra, Tvamcha Krishnanu Bhavena, because of Krishnanu Anubhavena, so because of the great mercy of Krishna, O Parikshit, Sajivo, you were brought back to life. The word uses Sajivo. So, in the very first canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and now in the ninth canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, very first canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam starts with this. Parikshit Maharaj saw this Krishna coming, in size of Angustha Matra Amalam, Spurat Puratam Aulinam, with golden shining armor of the size of a thumb, entering into the womb, shining completely. And at that point in time, he just had the sight of Krishna and he had almost died, because it's a small womb, how will it fight the heat of millions of suns, which is effulging from Brahmastra? But that was his sight. He almost died. And then Bhagavatam confirms this. Bhagavatam says sa jivo, which means you were brought back to life. Sa jivo muchito antakat. So he says that Krishna released you from death. So he had certain death from Brahmastra, but by the great mercy of Krishna, Krishna released him from death. This Parikshit Maharaj is told as he is being told the descendants and the dynasties of Ajamīḍha. So this verse actually highlights again that both the listener and the orator of this pastime, they feel this mercy of Krishna, that how Krishna can bring someone back to life. Krishna does this on multiple occasions, bringing someone back to life. So Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. So then Parikshit Maharaj was born, and from Parikshit Maharaj, now at this point in time, when Parikshit Maharaj is about to die, he already had sons, Janmejay and other sons. So the author is telling Parikshit Maharaj that you will have a son Janmejay. But after your death, this son Janmejay, he will become so angry with all the snakes. He will burn entire snake dynasty. He will try to burn entire snake dynasty like that. So Parikshit Maharaj didn't know this, but he was being foretold of what is going to happen after your death. And then all of his sons are listed. The dynasty comes to an end when there is a Shemakat. That's the last king of this dynasty. Shemaka. Shemaka is the last king from Parikshit Maharaj dynasty. And after that dynasty comes to end, the story goes back, reverts back to this Jarasan, the Brihadratha dynasty, which is the Magadha dynasty. So we spoke about Panchalas, then there are Magadhas. Magadhas, this dynasty continues from Jayadratha Somapi and then goes on. And the last of these kings were just traced few hundreds of years back from the Chandragupta Maurya dynasty. And then that dynasty also finishes. But then this Devapi, we spoke about this story of Devapi, where Devapi had actually left for forest, right? Shantanu, Devapi, and Bahalika. So Devapi had left for forest, but one time what happened is that in the kingdom of Shantanu there was no rain. So the voice told him, the voice of the Brahmanas, they declared that because of your having the kingdom, when your elder brother exists, you accepted the kingdom as a younger brother. Because of this, your kingdom is not having any rains. So go and request, beg your brother to actually accept the kingdom. So when Shantanu was going to convince his brother, some ministers from Shantanu's kingdom already sent some brahmanas to see this Devapi, and these brahmanas, they somehow bewildered his mind, Devapi's mind, and basically made him to understand that he should not accept the kingdom and that he doesn't respect the Vedic principles like that. So when Shantanu had actually reached Devapi and Shantanu begged him to come back and become the king, Devapi said no. And in that process, he chastised the Vedas. And so he became completely unqualified to become a king, because one of the basic requirements to become a king is you can't decry Vedas. If you decry Vedas, that's it. You can't be a king. So he decried Vedas, so he became unqualified. And so Shantanu came back to his kingdom. Demigods were very satisfied with his attempt, that look, this here is a person who's not attached to his position and is willing to give his kingdom back to his brother. But because his brother doesn't have accept it, he is willing to accept it back. So the demigods then showered lot of rains in his kingdom. And this Devapi, after some time, he realized that what had happened, and so he is still practicing mystic yoga, and he's still living in a village called Kalapagram somewhere in India. And when all of this current Kali Yuga finishes, which is 438,000 years or 438,000 years from now, Satyuga will restart, and the moon dynasty will begin again from this from Devapi in this village called Kalapgram. So this is where this chapter finishes. Uh, Next chapter begins from the dynasty of the Yadu, which we were discussing here. So we went to Puru, we went to Bharadwaj. From here, we went to Ajamīḍha, which is today's session, where we went to Panchalas, the Magadhas, and then in the Kuru dynasty, specifically, we went to Jhanu, and from Jhanu, the Pratipa. But then in next session, we will have to walk back this tree, go back to the Yayati's first son Yadu, and from Yadu there is another dynasty which begins, and there is marriage of women of that dynasty with here in the Panchala dynasty, and also in the dynasty of um, um, Kuru. There is cross marriage there. That's how Krishna and Arjun were cousins. That's how we learn that in chapter which is going to come next. So with that, I stop. We have some good time left for questions and answers. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. That was simply amazing, honestly. It's Yeah, I don't know how you come up with this, so thank you so much for giving this wonderful class. If anyone has any questions, please do raise your hand. So I'll just quickly start off, if that's all right. You were saying about the queen, um, is it Vasudev not being given the opportunity to procreate with the three queens? Would he have not known that they would have done this, and therefore would he have not gone to advise his mother that this would have happened because of who he was, basically? Would he have not been able to foresee what was going to happen?
You're speaking of Vyasdev, Prabhuji?
Vyasdev, yeah.
Vyasdev. So what was your question? So Vyasdev,
Because he was going to procreate with
yes.
the queens, would he have not known the outcome of that already? And by simply knowing the outcome, would he have not told his mother that, look, what you're doing, what you're asking me to do, is not going to be the end result that you would want, basically?
Very good question. So one thing is, I don't want to speculate, but Vyasdev was actually coming from tapasya when the whole situation had arrived. It was a pressing concern of Hastinapur, and Bhishma Dev was very rigid, like a nut. He wouldn't move and wouldn't marry. So, given the deteriorating situation in the kingdom, it was very pressing for Satyavati to send for her son, Vyasadev. And Vyasadev at that time was actually an ascetic and actually involved in deep tapasya, the writing of the scriptures, the Mahabharata, overseeing his students, Yagnavalka, and lot of the others. So, I can't imagine the kind of work he was doing at that time because he was breaking down the Vedas into four. And also, if you go and study the pastime of his students, they were not very surrendered students. Yagnavalka, had disagreements with his spiritual master Vyasdev. In one instance, Vyasdev had to demonstrate to one of his students that Maya is very powerful. That pastime of uh, one of his disciples saying, okay, okay, shrugging off Maya's strength. Then what happens is Vyasdev tells him that, okay, I'm going out for one night. I'll come tomorrow. And in the night, a woman comes and knocks, and she says that, okay, I need some support for the night. And so he says, okay, you sleep inside the ashram, I'll sleep outside. And while he's sleeping outside entire night, he's looking into the ashram through the door, and eventually he breaks the door and goes inside, and story is different. Next morning, Vyasdev comes, and Vyasdev then tells him that this was all to teach you an important lesson. So essentially the fundamental point is that the Vyasdev has had lot of work to do. He had come from the mountainous areas, and he had just come down. So now to beautify and everything was not his dharma, to and it was non-expectant. The ladies, the queens were not expecting like this. Um and Vyasdev was told that if he goes like this in front of the queens, they might be too afraid. It was told to me, and of course Vyasdev is Trikaldarshi, he knows everything. But sometimes you can't interrupt the flow of time because you're not the doer. Because if you are a Trikal, you know who is going to do what, when, how. And Vyasdev is one of those Trikaldarshis. Narad Muni is one of those Trikaldarshis. So Vyasdev knows everything, so he went ahead with the situation because he knew what's going to come.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. I've got a couple of other points while we're still waiting. Would you be able to, I mean, obviously, I think for certain people in this forum, to give the backstory of Vidura, if that's okay. And in this also in your diagram, you don't speak about Karna, and I suspect that's because he's not part of the sort of dynasty, the Puru dynasty. But if you could speak a bit more about Karna as well, because he's such a great personality in my view.
Okay, okay. I will in a moment burst this balloon of making Karna a great personality, because I'll take you into his complete story. Because in Mahabharata we only see one portion of his story. Um, so okay, so first question was Karna, right? You had two questions, couple of them.
Yeah.
First,
The first, sorry, yeah, it's the backstory of Vidura.
Vidura. Okay,
Yeah.
yes. So Vidura, the backstory is Vidura is actually Yamraj. Yamraj was always lamenting that Yamraj is a pure devotee of Krishna. He is one of the 12 Mahajans. In the Mahajan series, he's one of the 12 Mahajans. And you can know how he's a Mahajan in the second or third canto, yeah, third canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, in the pastime of the four Kumaras. Sorry, in the sixth, my sincere apologies, in the pastime of Ajamīḍha, when the demigods are coming to take Ajamil, and the associates of Yamraj, they are not able to take away Ajamil, because Ajamil remembered the Supreme Lord Narayan. So therefore, these servants of Yamraj, they go and complain to Yamraj, and they protest. And Yamraj, because he's a Mahajan, he immediately tells them that, look, I am not the controller. Actually, the control of the entire creation is the Supreme Lord. And the way he speaks, and he concludes to these servants, if only the people of the material world understood, these are literally his words, that if only the people of the material world understood that they have to always worship Govinda, they have to always worship Vasudev, then we won't have any customers. Basically, this is the path of liberation and happiness for everyone. So Yamraj is um, one of the 12 Mahajans, and he was always complaining in his heart that I have such a terrible service. No, I have such an amazing service, but I always have to see all these sinful people. When will the day come when I will be able to actually serve my Lord directly? Hmm? So what happens is that Krishna finds a way to fulfill the desires of his devotee. Sometimes it may seem a positive, sometimes it may feel negative. So what happens is, one time it's Markandeya Muni or another Muni, doing they were doing dhyana, and in their meditation there is a thief who comes and hides in the ashram of Markandeya Muni. And these king's servants, they think that this Markandeya Muni has actually given shelter to this the rogues. So they arrest Markandeya Muni and they bring him to the king. And ignorant king, he actually punishes Markandeya Muni. No, my sincere apologies. This is another story. Um, I mixed it up with another story. When Markandeya Muni was young child, he actually pierced the stick in the anus of an ant, and so ant died with that piercing in the anus. So he was very young. He was only 11 years old. So what happened is, he was basically in this pastime of this king who had who had arrested Markandeya Muni wrongly, because of the thieves hiding in his hut. So when Markandeya Muni is brought to the king, king punished him, and the punishment was that Markandeya Muni will be put on the very pointed seat, and this is how Markandeya Muni could die. So of course, Markandeya Muni was a very powerful Muni. He lives many like yugas. So when he was put on the seat, on this pointed seat, he just meditated. Of course, they couldn't hurt him, but he just went to the planet of Yamraj, and he said that, look, how can I get punishment like this? Then Yamraj tells him the backstory, that you got this punishment from this king is because you pierced an anus of an ant when you were a child, 11-year-old. So he said, how can you punish someone who is 11, who is abodh, who doesn't have both, who doesn't have knowledge, who doesn't have a full developed consciousness of what they are doing? You can't punish them. And because you have punished a 11-year-old child, I curse you that you will be also born in the material world. And of course, that curse was from Krishna's blessing. And this Yamraj then took birth as Vidura in the Shudra family, because he was cursed to become a Shudra in the material world, and that's how Vidura was born here. So the sum and substance is, sometimes the curses for a devotee, they are blessings. Only you need to have a vision to see it, and when you actually get the full power of those blessings, then you become very happy. So now coming to the Karna story. Karna was a very wicked, extremely wicked personality. His name is Thousand Armed Ones. I used to tell this story to my daughter in the bedtime stories. So he has thousands of arms, and each of these arms are very powerful arms protected by Surya Dev's blessings. Because there is this demon with, and he does extreme austerity, and Surya Dev blesses him that okay, you will have these 1,000 arms and no one is being able to kill. Whoever is going to chop your arm, they will die. So now with his 1,000 arms, he causes complete havoc in the entire all planetary systems. So whenever this havoc happens, then the demigods reach out to Lord Brahma. Brahma reaches out to, there is a hierarchy which happens, escalate to the manager, manager's manager, manager's manager, to the CEO. So it happened that way, and eventually the Lord said, okay, I'll come and I'll rescue the world from the harassment of this great demon. So the Lord came as Nar and Narayan Rishi. So Nar was Arjuna and Narayan was Krishna. So Nar Narayan Rishis, they had a technique. They were tag team. And even before beginning Bhagavatam, we always pray obeisances to Nar Narayan Rishis, if you have noted. Narayan Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam. That is, we are praying obeisances to Nar Narayan Rishis. So they did a tag team. Nar will go and will challenge this 1,000 armed demon for a fight, and this 1,000 armed demon will come, and before the demon could kill Nara would break off one of his arms, and then then Nara would die, and Narayan would come from behind, from the tapasya, and would revive Nara, and then Narayan would fight with this 1,000 armed demon, and Nara would go back and do tapasya for 1,000 years. So this 1,000-year tapasya, coming back and killing one arm of this 1,000-armed demon, continued for a very long time, and this kept the world peaceful because this demon was constantly engaged in a battle. So now all his arms were completely destroyed by Nar Narayan Rishis. One arm was left. When one arm was left, he ran to his presiding deity, which was Surya Dev, and he begged Surya Dev to protect him. And Surya Dev, he prayed to the Narnarayan Rishis to leave his disciple, to leave his beloved. And Krishna, being extremely merciful, he said, look, we will leave him with his one arm as long as he doesn't cause the problem. So, but he has to die. So then this 1,000-armed demon, he dies, and his next birth is born as Karna. And when Karna is born, he's born with that one protection, one armor. He has got earrings are made of gold. His kavach is made up of gold. No one can pierce the kavach. This is his last kavach, from that 1,000 kavachas he had. This was his last kavach. He was born with that. And he was not so great. He was charitable always. So you can't take away, his great thing of charity. And that's why he pleased everyone, because of his great attitude of charity. But he was very boastful, even in his previous birth. Therefore, his name is also like that. I forget the name, but his name literally signifies boastfulness. So he was boastful in that birth. He was boastful in this birth. Whenever they're in the assembly of where Draupadi was disrobed, he was the first person to say bad things to Draupadi, that she should be kept on the left thigh of Duryodhan. So he was nasty personality. I can't imagine how world doesn't know his story, and how can people see him just with one lens. Oh, he was given away by his mother, given up by yeah, that happened to him completely, but that doesn't justify him doing all the nasty things that he did with Draupadi, the way he was very boastful, and the way he actually treated generally the Draupadi. He didn't take the side of good people. He could have taken the side, not taken this gift from Duryodhan, knowing that well that Duryodhan could misuse it. Nonetheless, he took it. Even after he took it, he could have many times go back to Duryodhan and told him, look, I'm happy to give up my life for you, but I can't be part of this ill things you are doing. All the ill desires you have. Not, at no instance he projected his dishappiness, his dismay, but he just was in tune, in sync with the adharma, which is Duryodhan. So I can't understand shastrically from human point of view, if someone has been put in a bad situation, how does that wipe away their complete nastiness, their complete ill will, their complete degradation that they've done to a very saintly woman? Karna is a bad personality, not the best personality in my thought.
Okay, thank you very much, Prabhu.